Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with a review of SummerSlam 1990. If I can ever get down to it, I wanted to tell the real big story. Basically, 1990 WWF, 1991 WWF will always be the prime years to me. I know that when you look back over it throughout time, monumental sort of moments didn't really happen throughout those years. Hulk Hogan was the champion, or he was, transitioning Ultimate Warrior into being the next champion for the WWF, but he was like that legendary status kind of guy. Hulk Hogan was always still larger than life, and will always be a hero of mine. I think everybody has seen the video of me meeting the Hulkster, and my story of what that really meant to me. At the end, I think of meeting wrestlers. I think meeting Hulk Hogan was probably one of the most meaningful moments that I've ever had. Through going to Access and meeting people along the way. And I've got to meet Triple H, another one of my favorites, John Cena, Daniel Bryan, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, a lot of guys. But I mean, Hulk Hogan will always be that number one guy that I've ever met. I mean, he's the only guy that I almost cried when I was waiting in line. But I remember going to summer camp, and I guess it would be the summer of 1990. I used to go to San Ramon Valley Day Camp, and I remember that one of the kids that I was friends with, he actually lived close to the camp, and he was a wrestling fan, and we were talking about wrestling, and all of a sudden he started telling me about Hulk Hogan being injured, and I honestly had no clue about this, and he was telling me that I should go over to his house after camp, and we would watch the tape, and he would show me what happened. And what would happen was that Hulk Hogan was on an episode of the Brother Love show, and while he was out there, he was attacked by Dino Bravo and Earthquake, and they surrounded him, and Earthquake, dropped the big, what did they call that thing? Not the bonsai drop, because that was Yokozuna's thing, but he sat on Hogan's chest twice, pretty much, and that was just like, whoa. Hogan, was a big dude, but Earthquake was just a gigantic amount of man. And SummerSlam 1990, Earthquake was at the biggest. I had thought I had a picture in my mind. If I closed my mind and I could picture what Earthquake looked like. When I was watching this event last night, Earthquake was even bigger than I thought. I mean, I'm not one to really check out dudes, junk inside their trunks, but I mean, like, inside his singlet, his fat and girth is just packed into that thing so bad, you can't even tell where his junk begins. It's just like belly that just rolls over and never ends, and just rolls around, and he was a gigantic amount of a man. He just was huge, and the way they played this out was that, Hulk Hogan was going to leave. He wasn't going to be doing house shows. He wasn't going to be doing, any promoting or anything like that. He was going to go off. He was going to film what would be his second movie, Suburban Commando, where he was an alien from outer space that came down and was doing something, and Christopher Lloyd was in the movie. I think the chick from Back to the Future 3 played the wife in there. And it didn't really do a big deal. I remember I went and saw it when I was a kid, and it was a good movie. I don't think I've ever seen it since. I know that The Undertaker has a cameo spot in the movie as like a henchman coming after Hulk Hogan, and he has to fight them off. As a kid, with a Tugboat, who was Hulk Hogan's friend, coming on TV saying that Hulk Hogan was in the hospital and he was recuperating and he was trying to get strong. That, meant the world to me. And I was like, what, my hero is down. I mean, like, what am I going to do? And Tugboat, was trying to get people to go out and buy friendship bracelets, which were basically just, woven pieces of string. I think everybody's had a friendship bracelet, and WWF was selling them for like $4 or $5, and they were yellow and red, and they said Hulk Hogan or Hulk Rules, something to that fact. I really wanted one. I never had one. I've never thought about them until I talked about them right now. Maybe I will search the pages of eBay and see if I can find a Hulk Rules friendship bracelet from 1990. That sounds like something I must own right now. But basically, I wrote Hogan a letter. I don't really know what it said. Just maybe basically, Hulk Hogan, get well soon. Come back and kick Earthquake's butt. And because I did that, he mailed me this postcard. This postcard is something that I've kept For years and years. This is dated, it says August 31st, 1990, is when he wrote back to me. It just says, "Dear Hulkamaniac, you never really appreciate. I know you'll never really know how much I appreciate hearing from you. It is because of you and millions of Hulkamaniacs like you that I have decided to return to the ring. I will strive to be worthy of your support once again. Thank you, Hulk Hogan." And it's got my address on there, and I'll show it to you because I don't live there anymore. So, that's it right there. Hulk Hogan working out with the dumbbell. I've kept this in a safe spot for years. I mean, this isn't somewhere that I look every day, but it's in somewhere that if I know I want to look at it, it's only a minute before I can grab this. And I really honestly meant to bring this to WrestleMania this year. It just slipped my mind through the last things. I didn't want him to sign it. I think I just wanted to show it to him, and told him that I was one of those marks that wrote him a letter. When he was in the hospital back in the day. But because I did this, WWF basically, knew I was a mark, knew I loved wrestling. They put me on the mailing list. I got another one of these postcards when Suburban Commando came out to go out and go see the movie, reminding me that it was coming out. They put me on the WWF Mailing List, which was always cool because they would mail me like the catalog twice a year, saying, these T-shirts, these posters, it's basically like WWE Shop. I don't get the magazine anymore. I don't know if in the middle of the magazine they still put that pull-out in there and it says, everything that's in there. I don't know if they do that anymore, but they used to back in the day, and that was always one of the coolest things to look at. Hogan being injured, that honestly was a real big deal. I'm trying to decide if I have enough time to do the review of the whole show or if I want to keep going. But that's why this show always is very memorable to me. And honestly, I got a bonus surprise as I was watching this whole deal because I thought I knew a lot about wrestling, but honestly, what I had remembered about the past, really wasn't what was going to happen during this show. I think I've watched SummerSlam 1991, one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time, about 1,000 times. I think I know what's about to happen before it happens. I know Survivor Series 1990 is the same way, but I had a lot of surprises watching SummerSlam 1990. There was a few matches on here that meant something. Very early on in the show, there's a Intercontinental title change and an awesome match between the Texas Tornado and Mr. Perfect. I always liked Texas Tornado. He was always sort of like that, the guy that really stood out to me, and I didn't really know why. I mean, he was jacked. He was a big dude, but he didn't have height that much, and I was never a fan of the Von Erichs. WWF never talked about the Von Erichs. They never talked about World Class Championship Wrestling. They never really, they never even called him Von Erich. It was just the Texas Tornado, and that was it. And he wrestled against Mr. Perfect, and he sort of got the surprise win. He was the Intercontinental Champion. The title reign honestly didn't last that long. I think Mr. Perfect beat him within a month. He probably beat him within a month, and it was a match that was on WWF Superstars. So it was a match that you got to see on free TV, I believe, on like a Saturday morning. So I was crushed. This was one of the first times, we'd seen, people in the Heenan family lose matches, but when Mr. Perfect lost this match, Heenan basically took off and left Mr. Perfect behind. I don't know if that was a sort of tease, some sort of a face turn from Mr. Perfect, or a breakup from the Heenan family, but nothing really ever came of that. Just Heenan was really disgusted. Maybe he had to get in the bag and get to a promo in a hurry, but they played it up on commentary the whole time. There's a major angle that's portrayed during this show, and that involves Sapphire. Sapphire was sort of like the partner or manager or just friend of Dusty Rhodes, and she would always come out dancing with Dusty, and she was always a big fan that they gave a spot to be on the card and hang out. She was supposed to have a match with Sensational Sherri, who Dusty and they were rivaling with the King, Macho Man Randy Savage, and with Sensational Sherri, so they decided to have this chicks match. But the build up to the match was that basically, Sapphire out of the middle of nowhere was wearing diamond rings, and she was wearing bracelets, and she was wearing necklaces. She was preparing to go on a cruise around the world. In the promo, she would talk about these things, or they would just sort of pop up on her, and the TV would always sort of focus in on this diamond ring on her hand, sort of like, Where'd she get that? It ain't from Dusty, the common man out there. Sensational Sherri comes down to the ring, and basically she wins the match by forfeit because Sapphire never comes out, and it's the whole thing, where is Sapphire? Where is Sapphire? And, later on in the show, when Savage and Dusty Rhodes are having a match, they both come down to the ring, and as the bell rings, the $1 Million Man and Virgil come out onto the stage, and basically they bring out Sapphire and expose that basically the $1 Million Man is the one that is sort of paid the price for Sapphire. I don't think that he wants to be like... I don't think like she's a prostitute and she's gonna start begging the $1 Million Man, but he just wanted to screw over Dusty. Dusty goes running to the back to try and save Sapphire to get answers about why she's leaving with Dusty, but Randy attacks him, pulls him back to the ring. They have a short little match, but it's not that big of a deal. Randy ends up getting the win. Dusty never really gets any offense, and the second he loses the match, he still runs to the back and somehow still has time to try and catch DiBiase and Sapphire from leaving the arena in their limo. We have a tag team championship match, 2 out of 3 falls. The Hart Foundation against Demolition. Demolition is playing up the gimmick of basically having 3 members, Axe, Smash, and Crush. And it's a mystery about who's going to be in there. And basically there's a ruling saying that basically... only one of them is going to be, only 2 of them are going to be allowed at ringside, and they're not going to have all 3 of them, because they've seen too much of the 3 guys jumping in and out of the ring, and, the tag team championship is strictly for 2 guys, and they can have the Freebird rule, they can send out whatever 2 they want to, but that's the 2 that they have to stick with once it goes down. Basically, they're fighting, and once they tie this match up at 1-1, and they're battling out for the 3rd fall, basically, the 3rd member of Demolition comes out, and they're trading back and forth in the match. They're getting the fresh man always in there. Legion of Doom comes. They had just recently debuted in the WWF, and they come down to sort of even the score. The Hart Foundation is able to get the quick pin. They're able to win the championships, and then you would move on to what would be like the feud of Demolition, all 3 members going up against Legion of Doom and the Ultimate Warrior. Always really, really great matches. I think that Survivor Series 1990 well, it's not the main event because they had the Ultimate Survival match, but that's where they would go from there. Down there in the main events would be Hulk Hogan going up against Earthquake. If you look at any of the sort of promotionals that go along with this, it's Hulk Hogan and Tugboat. Tugboat was attacked by Dino Bravo, and he had to be replaced by the Big Boss Man. I don't know if maybe they gave up on Tugboat. They didn't really see that he was having the appeal that he was having. He would have a little bit of a run on his own, being Tugboat after that, but everybody knows he ends up turning into Typhoon with the Natural Disaster, teaming with Earthquake, going on to winning the tag team championships. But Hogan fights against Earthquake, and this is a match that really did surprise me. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It's a normal Hogan and Earthquake match where Hogan has to overcome the odds of Earthquake squashing him in the ring, sort of answering everything that Hogan has to offer in the match. And then all of a sudden, Hogan knocks Earthquake out of the ring. Earthquake does the table spot, which is actually pretty big in 1990, where he just sort of falls through a table. He's not like, chokeslammed or anything like that. And because of that, Earthquake gets counted out. The main event ends in a count out. This is not what I remember as being a kid. I remember the Hulk Hogan got the win. It was clean. I don't know why they were protecting Earthquake. Earthquake even gets protected in the Survivor Series 1990 match. Basically, with Tugboat jumping in the ring, they fight on the outside and they're both counted out, sort of even the odds. I don't know if maybe, they were having plans for WrestleMania, maybe to have Hogan versus Earthquake, but they'd already sort of started the Sergeant Slaughter turn during this, basically with him saying that he was disgusted with the WWF, saying that they were going to embrace Nikolai Volkov, the Russian, and putting him on their side, and he's saying that anybody who's going to, sort of bring on this commie is not a friend of his. So basically, that is when you started to see the turn. Lots of commercials for the LA Coliseum, even though that WrestleMania never happened there. The WWF Network never really changes those. They just sort of keep the same ones up there. They even have a intermission during the show. the Mean Gene goes to the intermission. The intermission's on the screen for about a minute, and then it's sort of cut down to where they come back and they do a lot of promos coming back. I always thought that was really cool. No more of that anymore. But basically, I thought the show was going to end with Hulk Hogan doing a pose down in the ring, and I was fine with that. And then this is another surprise. The Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude have a match. I had no memories of this, and not only is it a regular match, it's a steel cage match for the WWF Championship. Warrior, of course, had won the championship at WrestleMania. Rick Rude is the only guy that ever had a win over the Ultimate Warrior, so he was sort of the #1 contender that sort of got put right up there into that spot. If you go back to WrestleMania, when everybody knows about Heenan tripping the Warrior and then holding the leg down as Warrior pinned him, and Rude was able to win the Intercontinental Championship that way. They sort of made him the #1 contender. This match is pretty cool inside the cage. You can feel the power of the Warrior. The fans are really behind him and responding. There's Rick Rude hit the Rude Awakening at one spot, and it seemed like he was going to get the win, but he just kept beating up Ultimate Warrior. Then all of a sudden, he just throws him into the ropes. He does sort of like a shoulder block into him. Just a normal knockdown, and he tries to escape the cage. As he's trying to escape the cage, Warrior catches onto him. Him and Heenan are trying to basically pull Rude out of the cage while Warrior's trying to keep him inside. Warrior ends up pulling both guys into the cage. When that happens, basically Warrior hits the atomic drop. He hits the gorilla press. Warrior climbs over the top of the cage. He drops down to the arena floor. He wins the championship, and that's how you win SummerSlam. It was a hell of a match. It was a hell of a show. I really did like it. There are other matches that I skipped over doing the review. One of them is the opening match, Power and Glory beating the Rockers. The Rockers always came out to have a good match to start off a lot of pay-per-views there in the opening match. And a lot of those matches, they get the win. And it was sort of a surprise to me that Power and Glory go over. Not that Power and Glory were jobbers and barely got any wins on any pay-per-views or anything like that. It's just, I thought, this is SummerSlam, put you in the mood, get down to some good time wrestling, and all of a sudden the babyfaces lose. It is what it is. The Warlord beat Tito Santana in a match that doesn't really matter. Jake Roberts beat Bad News Brown with Big Boss Man as a special guest referee. I think this is right after when Boss Man turned babyface, because he sort of gets shoved down our throat during the show with two different separate promos, special guesting a referee, and then being in Hulk Hogan's corner. Sort of like, he used to be a bad guy, now he's a good guy. Look, he's teaming with Hulk Hogan. Don't boo this guy. And then also Nikolai Volkov and Jim Duggan team up against the Orient Express, one of my favorite tag teams of all time. So, Survivor Series 1990, I'm saying this is the definite watch. One of my best eras of wrestling. 1990, 1991. Hit up anything on the network in those or watch them all in order. Can't go wrong. Look at this. I went 18 minutes talking about SummerSlam 1990. This shows you how much I love this show. Good times. Peace out, everybody.